This week on the Big Story podcast, a covert military campaign heavy on airstrikes.
There was 4 million of these dropped, and you can imagine the devastation that these have had, again, on the people of Laos.
Leaving millions of cluster bombs on the ground ready to explode.
Still, to this day, we, the United States, are providing millions of dollars of funding to clean those up.
Removing all the explosives seems like an impossible task.
These are among the most bombed provinces in the country. We've cleared around 100 million square meters of land.
Next on the Big Story podcast. Hi, I'm Joe Zarinko, a producer here at Big Story. The tiny country of Laos has the sad distinction of being the most bombed country in history because of a covert military intervention by the U.S. During the Vietnam War, the Nixon administration dropped more than 2 million tons of bombs on Laos, more than 12 times the amount dropped on Japan in World War II. Or a ton of bombs for every person living in the country. Almost a third did not explode, and for decades up until now, these bombs have killed and maimed scores of people in rural areas and paralyzed economic growth. Our correspondent Jason Motlow traveled to this poor, little-known Southeast Asian country to report on the dark story behind the U.S. secret war and the lack of accountability that endures to this day. This episode of the Big Story podcast is called Buried: U.S. Bombs in Laos.
Winding its way through the limestone karst and jungle of eastern Laos, the Ho Chi Minh Trail has the dark distinction of being the most heavily bombed part of the most heavily bombed country in history. During the Vietnam War, the U.S. military pounded this area continually to stanch enemy forces and weapons moving on the trail, in what came to be known as the Secret War.
From 1964 to 1973, more than 2.5 million tons of bombs were dropped on Laos, equal to a plane load of bombs every 8 minutes, 24 hours a day for 9 years. This is what President Nixon said at the time in a televised address.
Despite our concern over increased enemy activity in Laos, in Cambodia, and in South Vietnam. And at that time, I warned that if I concluded that increased enemy activity in any of these areas endangered the lives of Americans remaining in Vietnam, I would not hesitate to take strong and effective measures to deal with that situation. The answer of the enemy has been intransigence at the conference table, belligerence at Hanoi, massive military aggression in Laos and Cambodia, and stepped-up attacks in South Vietnam designed to increase American casualties. This attitude has become intolerable.
Some 270 million of these were cluster munitions, small bomblets that scatter onto wide swaths of the ground. Joel Rubin is a former official with the U.S. State Department.
It's a painful rationale. Cluster munitions are devastating. They destroy villages and communities and harm significant numbers of human beings. In the Vietnam War period, the use of cluster munitions is done to devastating effect militarily, but killed millions of civilians, killed millions of people, and their use at that time was seen as somehow a military advantage because of its ability to effectively counter the enemy, but we all know how wrong-headed that was.
50 years later, bomb craters still scar the landscape. Let's hear from a Laotian, Kamson Sirimanavong, a board member of the NGO Legacies of War.
It's a huge, huge problem in Laos still. The impact is really beyond lives and limbs. It's economical, it's environmental, mental health issues, and so on. Just about 2 months ago, there was an incident that sadly we lost the lives of 2 children in Takek, and that's the area that I was born. And it really, it really solidifies our work at Legacies of War. It also tells us that there's still a lot of work remaining. Not many people know about the history of the U.S. bombings in Laos. The reason why it was bombed was because there's an area in Laos that is part of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And the U.S. were bombing along the trail in an effort to really thwart personnel and materials and weapons and all that before being moved from North Vietnam to South Vietnam. And because Laos technically wasn't a part of that conflict, it wasn't in history, it wasn't talked about, and soldiers that were a part of that weren't talking about it. Even my father, who was a soldier at that time, didn't talk about it, and he's Lao.
It's estimated that a third of these did not explode, posing a long-term threat to civilians.
There were actually at least 183 types of bombs that were actually used in Laos. And one of them was the submunitions, and those are the cluster munitions. And those are actually very dangerous. It's a bomb that's a little bit bigger than a softball. And on impact, there's like a bunch of little cluster munitions that come out of it. And it really just spreads out and it covers several football fields.
The long-term effects of these munitions still, to this day, we, the United States, are providing millions of dollars of funding to clean those up. Why? Because we are aware of how devastating their impact still is today. But at the time, that was not a real consideration, and that shows how inhumane the policy was.
Since the last bomb fell, more than 20,000 people have been killed or injured by unexploded ordnance, or UXO. In 2016, Barack Obama became the first sitting U.S. president to make an official visit to Laos.
Over 9 years, from 1964 to 1973, the United States dropped more than 2 million tons of bombs here in Laos. More than we dropped on Germany and Japan combined during all of World War II. It made Laos per person the most heavily bombed country in history.
Here's Jason again.
To date, 124 countries have ratified or signed an international treaty against the use of cluster munitions.
The convention is adopted.
The United States is not among them. Instead, the U.S. continues to export cluster munitions to active theaters of conflict. In July 2023, the U.S. announced it would send cluster bombs to Ukrainian forces. But if Laos's ongoing tragedy is any lesson, these weapons will endanger new generations, taking lives and limbs and holding the landscape hostage long after the conflict ends.
The Mine Action Group, or MAG, is one of the largest UXO removal organizations operating in Laos today. This is Eli Mechanic, its national director.
Since 1994, MAG has been working in 2 main provinces, Sengkuang and Cam Ranh, and these are among the most bombed provinces in the country due to their strategic location and their proximity to the Ho Chi Minh Trail. In those provinces, we've cleared around 100 million square meters of land, approximately 500,000 UXO items we've destroyed. The U.S. was, of course, was involved in the war very heavily, but they also are a major funder for us. Starting in 2016 in particular, when President Obama visited Laos, he really started an increase. The U.S. was already doing funding, but he increased the funding significantly. But the work still remains. Just looking around us today, we're not that far from Phomsavan City. We're just about 8 kilometers outside of the provincial capital, and still we're finding many cluster munitions, many UXO. So what we're doing is doing technical surveys around the province. We're trying to understand the scale of the problem, and we estimate, well, there's many more years of work, but we can see that at least 10 years of intensive work remains here in Laos. In general, what we do as MAG, we work very closely with the Lao government on their development priorities. We make sure that the area that we're clearing with U.S. support is in line with where the government is prioritizing. Areas such as this, which are agricultural areas, near communities, schools, things like that, where we know that are important to clear. Support won't be coming forever, we understand that, so what we're trying to do is focus on those priority areas.
I think there's a lot more that the U.S. can do to make amends, and that is to continue funding. Tens of millions of dollars sounds like a lot, and $350 million is what the U.S. has spent over the last several decades, but it's still not enough. Without the continued U.S. funding and increased U.S. funding, it's going to take a very long time for us to clear those areas.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could reduce our defense spending and increase our humanitarian spending and our spending on international development? Demining budgets are in the tens of millions of dollars. So it will never catch up just from a practical perspective, but it should be vastly and rapidly increased in order to meet the need and not require decades more.
At MAG's Visitor Center in the provincial capital, Phomsavan, an array of dismantled bombs are on display.
Right, what we've got here, this is a 2,000-pound low-drag general-purpose bomb. There was 4 million of these dropped. 4 million. And you can imagine the devastation that these have had, again, on the people of Laos.
Simon Clasper is a bomb disposal expert with MAG.
We removed the bomb, as you can see on the picture there. We just used chains and just lifted the bomb up.
A veteran of the British Army, he has spent the past 3 decades removing UXO from conflict zones around the world.
I was in Syria for 3 years, and there we were dealing with ISIS improvised bombs, whereas here in Laos, it's pretty much all US bombs from the Vietnam War. In Syria, you do a lot more thinking on your feet and in how to deal with certain situations. But here in Laos, because the items have been in the ground for so long, they are at different stages of degradation, which can make the items a lot more unstable. So still treat the items very, very carefully and treat them with a lot of respect, because these things will kill me as much as they'll kill a farmer. And we've got incendiary devices as well. This would be filled with white phosphorus, and it would come down to hit a building, and it would burn, set the building on fire, and just cause damage. So a lot of these.
And when you find white phosphorus UXO, is some of that still live?
Yes, very much, yes. And I think the thing that impacts them the most is the sheer size, the sheer amount of munitions that are still in the ground, and that affects everybody. Bombs are designed to kill, no matter what kind they are, homemade or military manufacturers, and so we need to treat them all with respect. And again, that goes back to the main reason that we need community liaison with ourselves and the public to educate. That's the main thing. Education's probably the most important thing here. Obviously, clearing the bombs is very important, but educating the civilians about the issue is, I would say, that's top priority. When you get out in the fields, it's horrific, the amount of danger that's still in the ground, and I think that's what differentiates Laos from anywhere else that I've seen so far, is the actual amount of items still in the ground.
In 2021, there were at least 63 UXO-related accidents in Laos. In the capital of Vientiane, Jason interviewed the program manager of the COPE Center, a charity that offers free prosthetics and physical rehabilitation to UXO victims.
We want to let the world know the impact that we have in the past and what the current need that Laos still looking for, the support in terms of the support of the funding, support of the being as the human being to have the happy life like other people. This is very important step for them to get rehabilitations, for them in order to get this access to the educations, employment, and also be independent for their own life.
It's been a long time since the war ended. Is there any concern that support for the kind of work you do could diminish?
Currently, we got different support, but we also looking for more in terms of expanding the sub-center into other provinces.
It's never too late. It's been 50 years since our dirty wars and our campaign for the Laotian people. They're living in the reality. The people who are standing up for Laos are concerned about cleaning out these munitions and changing the relationship for the better. The challenge for them is how to get the attention of the American policymakers. It's done often by different countries, and that's just a major challenge for Laos.
A short drive away, the Mulberries Organic Silk Farm offers a promising example of how UXO clearance can breathe life into the economy. There, Jason talks with the head of the farm, Bhuvan Chanda Singh.
So first, take you to see the mulberry field.
The land that this project was built on, there was UXO in the ground that had to be removed before any of this was built.
Right now we have the land 29 hectares, but about 17 hectares we already cleared the bomb, and the rest not yet.
Mulberry's founder, Komali Chantavong, was 11 years old when her village was destroyed by US bombers attacking the Ho Chi Minh Trail. She walked for a month to Vientiane, bringing her family's weaving techniques with her. In 1976, she founded the cooperative to support people displaced from rural areas who lacked marketable skills. Today, the cooperative trains them how to raise silkworms, spin fine silk thread, make natural dyes, and weave traditional patterns.
In Lao culture, Lao traditional is really popular to use silk. And Lao people in the past so poor and they do not import everything. So when they need to wear the shirts or clothes, they might grow the cotton by themselves and know how to improve to weave, and they might produce the silk by themselves and know the technique how to weave. So generation by generation, the Lao women still treat the children can be weaved until now.
More than 3,000 people, most of them women, now work on site and in villages where UXO limits their ability to farm.
We try to keep the job for them. They can earn money by our project. So the mulberry is one project that I dream to work with like this. So I really enjoy to work with this project.
Since 1995, the U.S. has contributed more than $355 million toward UXO clearance in Laos. It recently committed nearly $21 million with Norway to expand efforts in the south of the country. Meanwhile, 5 decades after the war ended, global awareness about Laos's UXO problem is declining, and the Laotian government wants to ensure that international support does not fade before the job is done. By one estimate, at the current rate of clearance, it could take another 100 years before the country is UXO free.
Some people and many countries in the world, they know only Vietnam War. But that in Laos country, we have a war and we have a lot of bomb like Vietnam, not different. But a few people know they make war in Laos also, not only in Vietnam.
That's all for the Big Story podcast this week. Our thanks to our colleagues Caleb Lopez and Felipe Lozano Puche here in our CGTN America studios. If you want to check out the full-length documentary, we'll drop the links on the show's notes, or you can just go to CGTN Now on Apple TV.